Hi there, this is another episode of On Speak. This episode for me is very exciting and I have a lot of emotion because tonight I will have my first uh, guest. He's an international speaker, so in this episode we will speak in English. And tonight my guest is from the United States of America, exactly from LA. He is a human optimization specialist, and we will talk about meaning of life. Tonight, my guest is Wei Houng. Wei, welcome.
Hey, fantastic. Thank you for having me. I'm glad we can make it. Glad we can make it work.
Thank you, Wei. Thank you, Wei. Wei, thank you for accepting my invitation to have you in my podcast. And first of all, I want to ask you how is going with the post-pandemic time in LA? How are people living their life after this pandemic?
Oh, this in LA, how they're living life.
Okay, we have some a little bit troubles with noise with voice again, but
So is it having issues now? Having issues now?
mm, it's till now.
Let me see. I don't know why it's having everything.
Mm,
I don't know on my end. Okay. Let me see here. Let's try.
okay, take your time. It's
Okay. How about?
this is when you make something live, you have to to wait for everything.
Yeah. Is it working now or is
Yes,
it?
yes. No, no, it's great. Okay,
Okay.
my question was, how are you living life in the post-pandemic now in LA?
I actually enjoyed um, the pandemic in the sense that I've been wanting to virtualize my business fully as much as possible, and the pandemic actually gave me a really good excuse to finally fully focus on the virtual side of my business.
Mm-hmm.
And so post pandemic, it's interesting. I think the rest of the world is dealing it with the best way they can, and because I work with human beings, it's I find my business has had to adapt a little bit, to pivot a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh,
it's interesting. This past weekend, I went out to a couple of events, and it was almost as if there was no pandemic. I think everybody was happy to be out by the ocean, so it was really easy to kind of like be out and be healthy and breathe good air.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, things have been good.
Okay, Wei, thank you. And a few weeks ago, I have write something in the tweet that you write in Facebook. Uh,
Mhm.
you asked something. Where was the last time that you have learned something? I think so was it. And I have write a comment. I said that every Monday I learn something from my podcast. So tonight I'm gonna learn something. I'm just asking you some question, and I hope we will learn something from your thoughts and from your expertise that you have made till now. So, Wei, my first question is because sometimes we think so much to do something and we lose so much energy and so much time and we don't take any action to start something. So do we have time to start with an idea?
Yeah, yeah. I think what you're talking
Please
about.
wait, can you check again your mic?
How about now? Is it better?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay.
Did you hear my question? Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I guess what you're asking is a lot of times people will get stuck in what we call analysis paralysis, right? You're overthinking, you're thinking so much about what it is that you want to do, and you get to a point where you don't end up doing anything, right?
Yes.
Well, one of the things about that is, in the work that I do, it's about every human being has a different set of motivations. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we grow up being told on what we should do to motivate ourselves. But the reality is every human being has a unique combination of motivational drivers. So I think part of our journey is to understand what uniquely motivates ourselves individually. And if we invest time, energy, and maybe even sometimes money into understanding that first, then we don't have to struggle as much trying to do it somebody else's way. Right? A lot of times we get stuck because we're wanting to do it in a way that somebody else said we should do it. Or we're trying to do it in a way so that we can be accepted by somebody else. Like, what if we didn't care about any of that? And we just listened to what excited ourselves into how we wanted to do things, and then just did it without thinking about it.
Okay. Wei, thank you for this part. And okay, somebody's writing to me. We have again noise, but we will take our best. Okay. We have talked something. Where is the time to start with an idea? But do we have an age? When is the best age to start with something?
Yeah. How's it sound now? Sound good? Better?
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Great. In terms of age, that's a great question. This is what I say. It's never too early and it's never too late. And we look at Kentucky Fried Chicken. He didn't become successful until he was after 60. And then we look at the world today. We have kids that are 5, 6, 7 years old that are already multimillionaires. And so the limitation of age is more so about understanding the time in your life and what's most prevalent. In our work and our research, we found that every human being goes through specific intervals. And there are some intervals that are designed for just kind of doing whatever you can because you have the energy to do it. And there are certain other intervals where there's a deeper level of wisdom and understanding. So depending on where you are in life, if you have an idea, there's a unique way of doing it, but it's never too early and it's never too late. The key is, are you passionate about it? Right? Is it something that you enjoy? Is it something that you will wake when you wake up in the morning? Or is it something that will keep you waking up every morning wanting to do something, and in spite of life happening or stress or struggle that you would still want to do it? I think that's the most important thing, rather than about thinking of age, right? Because of the internet and social media, you can start anytime.
I have a little bit problem to understand because still we have this noise. I don't know why. It can be the internet or something like.
Let me see what I can do here. Give me a second.
Okay, it's not a problem. Take your time. Take your time. Kjo është, kemi pak probleme, kjo është kur fillojnë live diçka me bëu ka vështirësi, prandaj edhe podcast jam shuhet që e realizojmë live edhe pritet gjithçka, edhe pritet me dështu, ka dështu edhe herën e kaluam, tash po shpresojmë që do të vazhdojmë me rregullu edhe Wei është një personalitet shumë i shumë në Afrikë edhe ju ftoj me përcjellje në YouTube edhe në rrjetet tjera sociale. Ka video shumë interesante. Fol kryesisht për jetën, është një njeri që mbjell pozitivitet tek gjithë, kështu që për pak minuta besoj që do të kthehemi prapë dhe do do të morëm përgjigjet përsëri derisa të rregullon mikrofonin Wei. Ne do të bashkëbisedojmë, nëse do të keni ndonjë pyetje, mundi me shkru, s'ka edhe shqip, mundi me shkru, pyetjen do t'ja bëjmë anglisht, një pyetjeve që kemi te komentuesve, kështu që pak do të fillojmë edhe shpresoj që të kalojmë sa më mirë. Yes, Wei?
Yeah, let me switch over. How about now?
Yes, it's okay. Please, if you can again give me the answer about the age. Do we have exactly an age where to start with something?
Yeah. So
sorry. At first, I'm sorry because you have to answer again. This
yeah. No. Okay. Yeah. No. It's a good question. And so, I like to say that because of the world we live in right now, it's never too early and it's never too late. Okay. And in the work that we do, we've been able to identify different intervals in life. So there are intervals in life depending on where you are. When you're younger, you may have a lot of power, a lot of energy to try a lot of different things. And then when you're later in life, for example, Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? Colonel Sanders, he didn't achieve success until after 60. And so when we use age sometimes as a reason to not do something or to wonder when we should start, I would say let's not use age. We have kids who are 5 years old on YouTube making millions of dollars. So what is the perfect age? The perfect age is whenever you decide that you want to take action on something. But more importantly, I would say when you do decide, because we live in an amazing world right now where you can be successful doing anything, I think the key thing is to make sure that you are passionate about it, that it's something that lights you up and fills you up and makes you happy. You can make money doing anything these days, so why choose doing something that you don't enjoy? Right?
We have few months ago, I have read an article about, I think she was a Japanese old woman. She has starting learning coding, gaming, and I think 81 years.
Oh.
And she has made 2 games for children's, for kids. So you said that age is not at all. You have to join something, to love something, and then is the time. Okay, Wei. Now I have listened to so many videos of you, and I want to ask you how to be happy and how to find again happiness.
Happiness, yeah.
Yep.
That's an interesting thing. I have a whole entire podcast called, which you've listened to. It's about,
I have listened.
And it's interesting because the reason why I focus so much on the happiness piece is because a lot of my clients, they come to me, they make a lot of money, and they're not happy, right? And and we live in a world where so much has been distorted when it comes to happiness. Like, if you do this, then you'll be happy, which then has us miss out on the whole point of happiness. Happiness isn't a goal. It's not something that we work towards to get. Happiness, true happiness, it's more of a state of existence. And interesting, what makes it hard for a lot of us is that most of us don't take the time to define what happiness actually is for us. Every human being on the planet has a different definition of what makes them happy. Just like if you look in your family, your own brother, sister, or parents, you each like different types of food, right? And there's certain foods that you like and certain foods that you don't like, and the other person could like the opposite. And when we eat something that we enjoy, we feel happy, we feel good, we're in this nice state of what do you call a nice state of happiness. And so I think one of the most important things for anybody that wants to really create a lifestyle of happiness is to first define in their own words, in their own way, what happiness actually means to them. And it's different, and it should be different. It shouldn't be a dictionary definition. It should be unique to you, right?
So, a second question in this part, is it like how we live our life, and so we will find our happiness?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is it like, for example, we live our lives going to clubs, making sport, playing games, and
Yep.
everything, and we are looking for our happiness, but we don't work for our happiness. We join more our life than to find something positive for us.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when you truly live a life of happiness, it shows up everywhere in everything that we do, right? It's not just because, okay, I'm gonna go, go to the club or go play sports or go out and have some drinks because I want to be happy. When we want to be truly happy, it's kind of what I was saying before. It's a state of existence, and then you find happiness in all the different areas of life, in your work, right? At home. And, those little slivers of what we call the silver lining, right? Of the dark cloud, even when life happens, right? So when we live that way, and when we choose to live that level of happiness, when we're living in a state of happiness, life will continue to happen. It doesn't mean that we won't have bad days. It doesn't mean that life won't have some challenging times. But when we, majority of the time, have a certain definition of how we want to live our lives happy, then it makes it easier to navigate and get through those tough times in our lives.
Okay, thanks, Wei. If I ask you about money and happiness, how can we use money to find happiness? Because we see so much people that they don't have money,
Right.
but they are happy.
Right.
We see so many billionaires, but they aren't happy.
Right.
They have so big problems. So, what can you say about this?
Well, I think the biggest mistake is when people connect money and happiness together, when in fact they're completely separate. Happiness is independent of money. Money is independent of happiness. And so what's the difference? What's the distinction is when we remember that money is simply a tool, then money can help facilitate happiness in our lives. If we see money as a tool and not the reason for our happiness. And so a lot of these multimillionaires or billionaires even my own clients that have come to me that are multimillionaires, and they come in and they're like, I have a lot of money and I'm not happy. And yet here I am. I say, exactly. Because money and happiness are separate. Money is simply a tool. Happiness is actually our own unique journey in life and of creation, right? I think living in a capitalistic world, if we buy into that rhetoric, that because that's how they sell things to us. If you spend this money and do this, you'll be happy. If you do this, you'll be happy. If you, make this kind of money, you'll be happy. And that's the biggest myth. Money and happiness have nothing to do with each other. And as long as we can remember that, then it'll be easier. Like you said, the happiest countries in the world are not the wealthiest countries in the world, right? You have people who are totally by the rest of the world are impoverished. They have no money. They're living off the land, and yet there's smiles on their faces every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And when people go there and rate them, whoever rates happiness, they rate it like, hey, they're really happy, but they don't have money. Why is that? It's because money and happiness have nothing to do with each other.
Mm-hmm. It is so true.
Yeah.
I think everything is how we build our mindset and this life we will live. If we build a good mindset, we will have a easy life. If you don't build a good mindset, our life will be so hard. So how to build a better mindset?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, the saddest thing about someone that passes away, and this is something I always say, is aside from the normal reason for sadness, right? Like, you know, they're no longer around. They, you know, their families will be sad, are sad for them. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think the biggest challenge is that, I mean, the saddest thing about when someone passes away is that a whole entire world passes away with them. You know, what you're saying about mindset, I often like to translate to how we view the world, how we perceive the world, how we interpret what happens to us and our experience in the world while we're alive. And in a way, it creates a filter in terms of what meaning we make of what we experience. And then if your mindset is not in an optimized state, everything you perceive, like if you ever wear sunglasses or glasses that are dirty, right? The world looks different than when it's clean.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people are working on their mindset, one of the things we want to remember is that we're doing it so we can optimize our ability to perceive the world in the best way possible that is in alignment with what it is that we want to do. When we have a cluttered mind, when it's too noisy, when there's too much on our plate, right? We can't, it's just like in a crowded room, you can't see to the other side, right? If you're a single guy and you walk into a crowded room and there's a beautiful woman on the other side, but there's like hundreds of people in the way, you're not going to see the beautiful woman. You're not going to be able to connect. You're not even going to be able to communicate. All you see is all this clutter. And so when we work on our mindset, we work on our perceptions of the world, in a way, what it does, it clears the path and it opens up and introduces a level of clarity so that we can actually have a better chance, a better opportunity to make the better decision and see what it is that we actually want.
And why is it so important to keep a clear mind?
Well, it's kind of like, have you ever tried to meditate in the middle of a rock concert?
I meditate every day.
Yeah.
I meditate every day.
Now go to a rock and roll concert, a music concert, right? A live concert with hundreds of people around, and then try to meditate there. Try to have a conversation there. It's kind of like earlier when you couldn't hear me because of some microphone issues, right?
Yeah.
Think of that almost like not having a clear mind. There's so much static. It gets in the way of you understanding because you couldn't understand what I was saying. The clarity of mind is like that. It's like having a microphone that actually works. It's like being able to have no static or extra noise in the way. So what is being communicated or what is being presented to you comes through without any distortion.
And I'm gonna take another question about money. How must we teach our kids about money?
Yes. Okay.
Because today, the kids are more, how to say, they know more like us in their age. So they're more, their future is more bigger like when we were in the age. So.
Uh-huh. Yeah. You know, it's interesting when I work with people, and I've spoken around the world about bad money stories.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, most of the time, what I found when people are struggling with money is because there's an unconscious program or story that is dictating their decisions around money and how they perceive money. And from one generation to the next, there are a series of bad money stories that get passed on, right? From parents to children, parents to children. I think when it comes to our children, if we want to make sure that they have a better relationship with money than we do, first, we've got to take care of it on our end in this lifetime. And then I think the conversation with the children should be not just about telling them what to do or how to do it, but also to be honest about and be vulnerable about saying, you know, I don't know everything there is to know about money, but this is what I do know, and I still can be wrong. We want to give children the ability to really be open to all the amazing resources out there so they don't get stuck with an old story that's been passed down to us from previous generations. And then that way they don't get locked into a specific container about how much money they can make. For example, if you have parents that grow up and the most they've ever made in their lifetime was $80,000 to $90,000 a year, and we don't let the children know, or our children know, that they can make more, even though we're not making more, then the children will grow up thinking, great, the most I can make is 80 to 90,000 a year. And then what we want to do is, if we want to make sure that our children continue to improve on what we've done, is to, I think, and it's hard because I think a lot of parents don't want to show up like they don't know. To say I don't know is kind of a scary thing for parents to say, because they want to be the best parents they can. And how could they show up and say I don't know? So when I talk to parents about how to talk to your kids about money, start by being vulnerable. Say what you do know and say what you have questions about. And then maybe also say what you're working on, and maybe work on it together as a family to break through those money blocks or those challenges around money, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
kids see that, you know, you as a parent will you as a parent are still learning, right? And still growing and still expanding your understanding. It gives them the ability to really kind of be open-minded, more open-minded when it comes to money.
Is it equal like what you think you get in
I'm
this
sorry.
part? What you think
Yeah.
you get, this you will get.
Yeah, it's kind of like going back to the whole mindset piece, right? To
Mm-hmm.
have more less more flexibility. I think one of the laws that I share with my clients and students all the time is called the law of requisite variety. And what that law basically states is, he or she who is most flexible in
Mm-hmm.
both mind and body controls the system. And so when you feel like, you know, there's not, you're losing control of life or money or whatever the case may be, then you remember this law and say, well, how inflexible am I being in this moment? Because the more flexible I am, the more adaptable I am, the more I'm actually able to control my circumstances. And so I think what you're saying, what we can say to help our kids, you know, with their mind and what you think about, is just, yes, what you think you can create and manifest, and also have a level of flexibility and adaptability and openness, so that you're not just stuck in a particular type of thinking, right?
Sometimes, I have two children, and I take them in my office. And when I'm at home, they ask me why you stay so much in your office. And I take them and I say to them, okay, stay here and only look what I'm gonna make. Okay, and I work and they don't understand anything. And after this, we will go in the bank and take some money. And I said, you have to work to take your money.
Mm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, and so there's an association with there. They're wonder. So did you ever ask them why they wonder why you're in the office so much? Is there a reason why they're asking that?
My youngest, so my little boy, he's 4 year, and he asked me more, and he said, if you work too much, you will earn more.
Mm-hmm.
He's very young, but he's clever.
Yeah.
If you work more, if you work much, you will get more. If you work not so much, you don't earn. And
Yeah.
but he knows that to buy something, you
Uh-huh.
have to earn something at
Right.
first.
Right.
Because I didn't learn them. Okay, take this money,
Right.
because they don't have a good understanding about money now.
Uh-huh.
If you give them money as a gift,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not right. You have to give the money for something.
Yeah, the value of exchange. I
Yeah.
think what you're talking about is work ethic, right?
Hmm.
And so there's a fine line. I mean, parenting is hard. I mean, it's not the easiest thing in the world, right? I mean, there's a fine line between teaching work ethic and also teaching them at the same time. You might end up teaching them to burn out. Like my sister has really good work ethic, but she doesn't have any boundaries, and so she burns out on a regular basis. She works out, so she's super, super tired all the time. I think one of my clients, he did a really good job explaining to his children why he works a lot. And it's not because of the money per se, because that's obvious. If you work, you make money, right?
Hmm.
I think the big thing that he explained to them is that he loves what he does. And
Hmm.
when you love what you do and there's purpose beyond just money, you'll make money and you will not get tired. And so that way, the children will then start to think about, okay, where can I work where I don't feel like I'm working and I don't feel like
Hmm.
I have to push myself to work and I still love what I do. And in exchange, I not only have money, but I also have fulfillment. I also have satisfaction. I also have purpose. That's when making money becomes sustainable. That's when we start to we start to like break down all the limits of how much money we can make. Because if we get caught up in that cycle of in order to make more money, you have to work more. Well, there's a limit, right?
Hmm.
And so what we want to do is how do we then work smarter, right? But leverage our wisdom, leverage our skills in such a way so that you actually get to a point where your value proposition, what you put into the world, doesn't require you to spend hours and hours of time. In fact, the reward for your contribution to your audience and to the world out there is actually not just money, but also freedom. And
Hmm.
see, kids teach us a lot. And one of the things that your 4-year-old might be teaching you in that moment is he's basically saying, you spend so much time in the office, I want you to spend more time with me. And I don't want just money, I want dad's time. I want dad's love.
Hmm.
And so that's a lesson for us as adults. Our kids will teach us this. And it's like, how do I do that then? Right? Right? Because he's not asking because he wants to make you look bad or sound bad or feel bad. He's asking because in a way, he's saying, hmm, maybe I want to spend more time with dad.
Hmm.
But he's in his
I
office.
don't want money.
Right?
Yeah.
They don't know about money yet, really. I mean, they
Yeah.
know that, to get things, they need money, but the value is not quite there. The distortion of the value of that. For them, life is still more important.
Hmm.
I think that's a beautiful lesson that your 4-year-old can teach us all right now in this moment is to ask, why are we in that office so much?
Yeah.
Is there a way for us to still do what we want to do, impact the way we want to impact, flow the money the way we want to flow, and still have the freedom to spend those precious moments and times with our very quickly growing up kids.
Wei, thank you. I'm enjoying this minutes that I'm listening to you, and now I'm gonna ask you how to use time better.
Yeah, so time is interesting. That's a really good question as well. Time is probably the only constant currency that everybody has the exact same access to, right? And the value of time is, for the most part, same for everyone. And what there's a concept of that I teach my students called time blocking, which in a way can actually help you create more time. And what happens is that based on what we've learned through through studies and everything, multitasking is a terrible waste of time, right? Doing things more than once. And so what we found is single-threaded type of activities are probably the most efficient way to not only use your time, but also to create more time. And so, for example, if you have 3 or 4 things you want to get done every single day, the key to get the most out of your day and get things done is do one thing at a time. And you block off no more than 60 to 90 minutes to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing is to make sure that you only do 3 to 4 things at most every single day. Especially as an entrepreneur. I know it might not be the easiest thing in the world, but once you figure that out, to just say, okay, every day, these are the 3 main things I need to get done no matter what. Everything else is just bonus. When we do that and we dedicate specific time to do that, you'll realize, one, you'll get more things done to move things forward, and you'll realize that you'll end up having more time in the day to explore other possibilities. And I think managing time is about not filling it up unintentionally. You want to be very intentional about how you fill your time. Pick the things that are most likely going to contribute. So for example, if you're an entrepreneur, you have a business, choose the things that will move your business forward every single day. Now, it doesn't have to be a big leap forward. It could be like a tiny step here or a tiny step here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And same things in our life, okay? In our health and fitness, pick one thing that we could, or two or three, 1 to 3 things that you could do every day that will help move our health and fitness forward or keep us in a healthy state. In our relationships, pick 1 or 3 things that you do every single day that can improve your relationship with your wife, improve relationships with your parents, improve relationship with your kids. Just one thing. And if all we do is that one thing every single day, well, guess what? Every single day will be productive, and every single day your time will be so much better well spent. I think we live in a world where we're bombarded with so many different distractions that we end up multitasking everything and we get very little done. And we try to move everything at once, and then we end up moving everything nowhere at once.
Okay, wait, thank you. And about entrepreneurs, what is the breaking through moment for an entrepreneur?
The breakthrough moment?
Yeah.
What I mean in the context of breaking through in their business, breaking through in
in business, in their business,
Yeah. So the interesting thing about entrepreneurship, unlike your standard business owner or whatever the case may be, entrepreneurs who identify themselves as an entrepreneur are the problem solvers of the world. And being problem solvers of the world, one of the things that is a requirement in order for the business to grow as an entrepreneur, the human being behind that business also has to grow. And so breakthrough moments for entrepreneurs in their business typically starts with a breakthrough moment for themselves. Entrepreneurs who struggle in their business are usually ones who don't invest in themselves, because behind every business is a human being or a bunch of human beings. And if the human beings are not optimized, if the human beings are not taking care of themselves, it will show up in their business. And so most of the time when you see a breakthrough in their business and then a breakthrough in sales and breakthrough in growth, usually what has happened before that is there was a breakthrough in the human being before that happened. The breakthrough in the human being rarely happens after a breakthrough in their business. It usually starts with the human being. So if there are struggles and challenges in a business and an entrepreneur is trying to figure out the business and they're not getting anywhere, well, then likely it's not the business. It's the human being behind the business.
Mhm. From the breaking through, I will ask you now how to stay motivated.
I think this goes back.
We need something to stay motivated because you said before we are bombarding from such
Right.
information.
Yeah, and that's that's been an ongoing question. I've spoken all over the world around creating limitless motivations, right? We have this patented human assessment technology that helps people uncover their unique motivational drivers. Every human being, through our 20 years of research, we found has access to about 12 different motivational drivers that are governed by the nuclear forces that live within us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest challenge is not realizing that there's only two main motivators that drive every human being. It's just the question of which one. And I think the challenge with motivation is when we try to go outside to find it or model or look at somebody else and try to copy them, that's where we might get a little bit lost and not figure out how to get motivated. So what we want to do is really kind of, again, take the time to really pay attention to what lights us up. How you are motivated is you got to think about, well, what gets you excited? And you don't just look in the context of business, look at your entire life. Does beauty excite you? Does getting things done excite you? Or does watching transformation, creating transformational change excite you? Or maybe spending time alone away from human beings is actually what feeds you, being able to spend that alone time. There's so many different types of motivational drivers. I think what makes it hard is because most of us aren't really given the permission to say, hey, yours is different, find it, and if we find it. So fortunately, we have a technology that helps people find it pretty accurately. And that's what we've been using to help people. And so that's helpful there. But I think when it comes to motivation, everybody is different. And what we want to start to really pay attention to is if you look at all the things in life that energizes you, chances are your unique motivational driver lives somewhere in those types of activities. And then once you identify what that is, then you can apply it to all other areas of life. When we try to do it some other way and it makes us tired, then chances are that's not our motivational driver. Okay. And it's that simple. Does it energize you or does it not energize you? And then from there, you can actually explore and see and figure it out. What is it that you can then use that? How do you use that for all the other areas of your life?
Yes, it's great way. So we are in the end of this episode, but I have few questions and mm, I will pause some questions. So my next question is how to build better focus in our business, how to stay focused.
Stay focused?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of everything that we talked about, right? You meditate every single day so you can stay focused in your business, right?
Mhm.
If we use the motivational drivers that are specific and we help keep a clear mind and we work on our mindset, that also helps us stay focused on the business. But I think one of the most important things is to understand your bigger why. There are days that things are challenging. There are days when we have a hard time getting out of bed. But if we have a very clear understanding of why we're doing what we're doing, the purpose of what we're doing. And it's not just to pay the bills and not just to pay the mortgage or any of that. Beyond that, if
Mhm.
there is a clear why or purpose beyond self, focus becomes a lot easier because we can use that to remind ourselves in the darkest of times, why is it that we still continue to show up every day for what we do as work, what we do to serve our audience.
And Wei, risk or fail, or is it okay if we risk something for our life?
You mean for risk? For
Yeah.
like, what would be an example of a risk that you're talking about? Because risk is subjective, right? It's relative.
Yeah, no, I think in this way. So if we are doing nothing, we are risking and we are failing. So to start something, it can be that we lose something, and it can be a risk.
Yeah.
It can be a risk about money, time.
Right. I think one of the things that we should be willing to risk is letting go a belief or previous version of ourselves that does not serve what it is that we want to do. Like, for example, if you want to create a $100 million corporation, then what you should probably risk giving up is your desire to play video games for 5 hours a day and watch Netflix for the other 5 hours a day. Right? Okay. But when we go through, and I think religion has a lot to do with this whole sacrifice and everything like that. There's two ways to flow money in our lives, right? The traditional way is trade. We trade time, we trade energy, we trade an essence of ourselves. The challenge with that is over time, we start to trade in more and more of ourselves, and we start to give up more. We start to over-sacrifice. The more sustainable way of making money or flowing money into our lives is when we align our purpose and desire of what we're doing, and why we're doing what we're doing, with the reason why we want to make this kind of money. Then you stop. Then the risk component starts to go away. I think what keeps people from taking that chance is because they fear they might lose something. And so what you want to look at is, well, what is the exchange, right? If you take a chance, you take a risk, what is the end result? What is the byproduct? And what keeps people from doing that is belief. There's two components that keep people from being successful, okay? One is commitment, committing to what it is, what's possible, what you want to do, right? Fully, 100% commitment, right? And the second is courage. Do you have the courage, once you've decided and gotten clear about what it is that you want to do and why is it you want to do it, do you have the courage to step into it and own it, that that's your path? And I think those two components are the biggest pieces that keep people from becoming as successful as they want to be, is commitment and courage.
Yes, it's great. Wei, I have a question from our last episode. Let me find. Okay. This question is from one viewer. He wanted to ask from also 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
How to overcome procrastination?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, in our work, we found that there are certain people that actually have what I call authentic procrastination. And so it depends on how you're uniquely designed. Our cultures, the world likes to make procrastination a bad thing, but there's a healthy way and an unhealthy way of doing procrastination. The unhealthy way is what everybody knows. Nothing gets done. You keep putting things off, late to everything, and blah, 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 right? And it starts to get in the way of what you want to do. Now, procrastination actually serves a purpose when we understand how to use it in a healthy way. Healthy procrastination is, for some of us, is our ability to prioritize things due later so that we can make room for what needs to be done now. And so the first step is to understand, okay, let's understand how you're procrastinating. And is it a healthy procrastination or is it an unhealthy procrastination? How you do that next time you procrastinate, ask yourself, are you making room for something else so that you could do that something else now that's a little bit more important? Or are you putting things off just so that you could sit around and do nothing? The latter is unhealthy. The former is a little bit healthier. And I think when we the first step is to stop beating ourselves up for procrastination, because the reality is we're procrastinating on some deeper level for a purpose, for a reason. And if we beat ourselves up, our unconscious mind or our inner child will just fight back and procrastinate more. But if we ask ourselves, like, okay, what is the purpose of me putting this off right now? I'm either protecting myself from something, right? I'm keeping myself safe, or I'm trying to satisfy a deeper belief in order to, and using procrastination to prove that belief. When we start to have that kind of conversation or dialogue with ourselves, we can start to shift from unhealthy procrastination to a more healthier expression of that procrastination, which is basically a more efficient way of prioritizing things so not everything has to be done now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks, Wei. Thanks a lot for this meanings. So I have my two last question. Tell me your friends, and I will tell you your future. It's
What is that?
tell me your friends, and I will tell you your future. So how is it okay if we stay with good peoples, good friends, and you will have the life that they are living now?
Yeah, yeah. I think did you get that from listening to my stuff? I say this all the time. I had a client. I've had many clients actually, but one client in particular was dealing with depression, and he was on medication as well for his depression. And we were working with each other for a long time, and I was like, gosh, I mean, he's going forward and he keeps coming back. It turns out that the people in his life were contributing greatly to his perception, which then led to his depression. And so then I introduced to him our concept of upgrade your network, change your life. The top 5 people in your network should represent one of the following. Either they represent someone or human being that is ahead of you where you want to go, or they are people that are your peers that are on the same path of intention and growth and what they desire. And if the top 5 people represent that, it's a lot easier to succeed. Your life will change. Consequently, when I helped him upgrade his top 5 people, he stopped needing, he wasn't depressed anymore, and he stopped taking the medication just by upgrading his network. Now, there is a argument out there that says, well, no, I can't just cut these people out. I'm not talking about cutting people out, because we're talking about the top 5 people that you spend the most time with. Doesn't mean you don't spend time with anybody else, but it's where you're spending most of your time. If you have a desire to have support and easier time in creating success and happiness and everything that you want, then your top 5 people are supremely important, because their energy and their frequency and their presence and their support will be a big part of your journey, because you are human, life will happen, and that support network will help you out in the darkest of times.
Okay, thank you, Wei. And my last question for tonight is how to turn fear into success.
Yeah, fear is an interesting thing. Anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt. Fear is one of those primal core emotions that we have. And I think a lot of times we misinterpret or we mislabel excitement, the preparation for what we need to do to be successful. I remember when I was doing track and field, every time I got ready for a race, I would go onto the starting line and I would shake. I would shake from all the adrenaline that's pumping in me. And it wasn't very different from what I felt when I was scared. Right? And fortunately, because of my coach and my in the sports I was playing in, I learned that it wasn't fear. I didn't label as fear. It was my body, my ecosystem, my entire mind preparing myself for the race ahead. And so when we are about to do something, fear kicks up. Obviously, our adrenaline goes up, our heart rate goes up. I think it's a great opportunity. One of the things we should do is just ask ourselves, okay, if it is truly indeed fear, ask yourself this question: what is it specifically that you're afraid about? And then explore that. Have a conversation with yourself to kind of play out that fear story to see where it's actually going and why it's kicking up. Because remember, fear kicks up to protect you. And if we don't embrace that ultimate ourselves to protect us, then we'll never know why that is. And if we can't get to the bottom of it, it's going to keep coming up and getting in the way. But when we start to understand it and ask the question specifically what the fear is, and start to kind of chase that a little bit, go deeper into understanding that, that's when we can start to change that fear and oftentimes use that energy and channel that towards greater success.
Yeah. Wait, this was my last question, but I have a question from a viewer. He asks, okay, is it necessary to force children to get faculty degree?
That's a great question. And we're talking about faculty, university, college, right? Degree, right? Yeah. It really depends. You know, the necessity of a faculty degree is a human. It's a human created rule. It's a cultural societal rule. Before there were schools, before there were universities, it was just an artisan approach, right? You know, parents teach their kids and kids grow up and teach their kids. There was no university. So it really depends on the kind of support system you want to create for your children, right? The kind of life they want. You have kids these days that drop out of school because they're already making millions on social media. So is it necessity? It depends on the child. Ask the child, what is it that they want? Ask the child what is interesting to them, and we support them. If faculty degree is supportive of that, then we support that. But if they want to do something completely different, and you can tell, right, as parents, you can see just how committed and how passionate they are, then our role as human beings to support our offspring and our children is to be as open-minded and as supportive as possible without being too tied to what generations have taught us as a necessity. I don't ever see any of that as a necessity, but if it's a way to support what they ultimately want to do, then great. I went to university and then I left for like 10 years. And then I went back because I decided I wanted to go back for that message because I was clear of what did I want.
Yeah. We have some questions. So in our culture, in our country, you must finish or your faculty degree or high school or any kind of them. But if you don't finish school, you are not in the level with the others. But you said a small children is now a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
He didn't finish.
Yeah,
And
I haven't even started school.
But
Right?
I like it the part you said, ask your children what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the greatest. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have to remember our children are our greatest teachers. They remind us of how limitless the world is. You know, they look at the world with such open minds because there's nothing holding them back. And I think in an effort to survive, we start to close ourselves off. You know, one of my old clients, we all know him, Elon Musk. He actually said that he'd rather hire somebody who doesn't have a degree but is passionate about coding, passionate about technology, passionate about what they're doing, and will go up and beyond to learn whatever they need to learn to do whatever they want to do. He'd rather hire those people than someone who went and got this degree and really isn't into it.
Wei, it was a pleasure to have you as my guest in my podcast called Unspeak, and I hope that one day you will visit us in Kosovo. And Kosovo, by the way, is the youngest country in Europe, and we will wait you. And I want to ask you if you have any message for my viewers in Kosovo and other countries that they are listening us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would love to visit. Now that I know that you're there, you bet I want to make sure that you're my tour guide. Yeah, I think when it comes to, we live in a very small world right now. You're in Albania, I'm here in California, and we're having this amazing conversation, which is fantastic. The other day, I was talking to somebody in Vienna. Then I was talking to somebody in South Africa, all on the same day. I could literally travel around the world in moments, right? And because the world is so much smaller now, I think it also opens up the possibilities of anything. The possibilities are literally endless, and the only limitation that we have is what we bought into with our mind. And because the internet, as long as you have internet or you have some kind of access to internet, there are no limits to the resources that you have access to be able to achieve anything that you want to achieve. So what I would recommend for everybody is be willing to challenge the rules of reality that we grew up with. Be willing to redefine all the words that you use to define success and happiness and what it means to work and what it means to be a good parent and what it means to, generate the best life. You can redefine that and you can create reality from whatever circumstance because the resources that has supported it. So it's a fantastic
Okay, Wei Houng, thank you so much. It's the time ago that I have asked you to be my guest, and I appreciate it so much that you take your time to speak with us and to tell us something like so information that I didn't hear before. And I said 2 weeks ago in your profile Facebook, I said that I learn every Monday. This is the part where I said I learn every Monday. So this opportunity have everyone who are listening to my podcast. And so Wei, thank you again. And I think and I hope that I will see you again in any way. It's not a problem. And so it's time to say you goodbye. And I hope you will have a good day, because you just start your day now, and we will gonna sleep now.
You have a good night, have a good morning. And I have to say, Carlos, I really admire your desire to continuously expand and grow and serve your audience. You're obviously creating a platform to try to provide as much value as possible. So I'm glad to support anything or to help support you, your audience, anybody around the world. You just let me know.
Thank you, Wei. Thank you, and good night. Goodbye. Shikues të nderuar, from Wei Houng kërkoj falje për gjuhën angleze që nuk ka qenë në nivel të duhur, mirë po prap ajo që nuk arrihet të tëra nuk lihet të tëra. Deri në episodin arshëm, mirëmbëjtje, edhe faleminderit gjithë juve që më keni shkruar edhe për probleme teknike që kemi pas. Natën e mirë edhe mirëmbëjtje.